We are just a week away from Thanksgiving, and a Boise veteran has much to be grateful for.
But Roland, getting to this point has been a journey filled with injury and depression, jail time, and eventually forgiveness. Now this former Army reservist is saving lives by sharing his story. And tonight we're on your side showing you what can happen to veterans who suffer from PTSD.
Even now I look back on it and say, I'm still kind of in disbelief.
What's unfolded in George Nichols' life is hard to believe. 6 years ago, while on a mission south of Fallujah, Iraq, Army Staff Sergeant Nichols' mine-resistant vehicle hit a 500-pound bomb.
It was actually big enough, it threw the truck in the air and actually blew through the armor of the truck.
George was the only survivor.
My first real memory is in Walter Reed. You know, I got the big metal apparatus on my, holding my leg together, and I got tubes in my chest and 4 different IVs in me, and so that was my first memory coming back.
George also suffered a traumatic brain injury. It would take over a year to heal his body, but the post-traumatic stress didn't go away. George came to the realization he would never wear his uniform again, stripping him of his identity. He couldn't sleep, drank heavily, and 2.5 years after a terrorist IED shattered his life, George Nichols snapped.
There are multiple rounds fired by officers.
Somewhere in the course of that case of beer, developed a story in my head that someone had taken my dog, so I put on my assault vest and grabbed my rifle and started breaching doors in my apartment complex.
And I told him, I don't have your dog, please go away.
Did you have a dog?
Yes.
And where was the dog?
He was in the apartment the whole time. But it's craziness. I mean, it really is.
It was your rock bottom moment, right?
It was. I mean, that was as low as I could go. I mean, I'm always grateful that, you know, they missed when they shot at me. You know, but at that time, I didn't care.
George Nichols sat in jail for 8 months. When he arrived here at the Ada County Courthouse for sentencing, he was facing another 15 years in prison. But that's not what happened. Judge Deborah Bale looked at George and said, get help.
I won't take chances with the public. I feel really strongly about that. And I always feel strongly about situations where officer safety was involved. But it looked like we could move him through the steps of change in a way where other people could be kept safe. And we could see, is he really serious about change?
George did. He took the second chance, entered a live-in program at the VA to get sober and start learning how to live with PTSD. Judge Bale, he basically credits you for doing a part in saving his life.
Well,
Judge Bale calls George exceptional for not only turning his own life around, but for reaching other veterans by sharing his story.
well, I know for a fact from what people told me in open court that he has saved lives because he knows what PTSD feels like. He knows what happens if you don't handle it well, and he's talked to veterans who are suffering from PTSD, and he's gotten them to go in a positive direction.
George still deals with flashbacks, even walking on Boise State's campus. As a student now, there are days he can't help but search rooftops for snipers. As George says, there's no Band-Aid for PTSD. He goes to counseling weekly, calling it maintenance. But what this former squad leader now knows is that there is life after tragedy and trauma. And George Nichols is proud of the man he is today.
Make a new identity and become a new person.
And you have.
And I have.
And helped a lot of people along the way.
No doubt about it. So George has actually worked his way to unsupervised probation, and he's going to graduate from Boise State next month with a degree in psychology, as you might expect. He plans to pursue a job as a social worker, continuing to help other veterans.
And he's made such progress. Is there a chance that he'll get off probation completely?
That's what I talked to Judge Bale about, quite possibly, in fact, because in Idaho law, for a crime to be wiped off the record, there has to be a certain amount of time. Obviously, you have to show your progress. Judge Bale told me she pretty much expects to be able to do this with George. So if you are a veteran in crisis tonight, if you know of one, George wants to help. You can contact him through IdahoVeteransNetwork.org, or you can look up the Idaho Veterans Network on Facebook.